What if you stumbled upon a book that could predict death, including the death of someone you love? Not next year, not next week, but tomorrow. Would you try to change fate, or would you be next in line? This is the story of Daniel, and the book without a title. A story that starts with rain, but ends where reality bends. It was a rainy Saturday morning in Millbridge, a small town where the library still smelled of old pages and dust. I sat at my desk, the soft drumming of rain tapping on my window. Normally that sound relaxed me, but today it only made me restless. I had my laptop open, fingers poised over the keyboard, pretending to work on a history essay. The reality was I hadn't typed more than 2 sentences in the past hour. The shouting downstairs didn't help. Not again, I muttered under my breath. I shoved my chair back and padded out of my room, heading toward the living room. Sure enough, Mom and my older brother Mark were at it again. I said, "I'm sorry," Mark snapped. "The party ran late. I didn't realize it would go until 1 a.m. Mom's voice was sharp, worried. "Something could have happened to you. You could have been kidnapped, killed. Yes, yes. We've heard it before," I cut in, stepping into view. "Can you two take this drama elsewhere? Some of us are trying to study." They turned, slightly startled. "Oh, Daniel, honey," Mom said, her tone instantly softening. "We didn't mean to disturb you." "I'm going to the library," I said flatly. "I need silence, and clearly this house doesn't offer that." "Wait. Don't worry," I added as I grabbed my bag. "I'll be back by dinner." The walk to the library was cold and wet. Rain drizzled from the grey sky in sheets, but I didn't mind. The air was cleaner outside, and at least it wasn't filled with shouting. By the time I reached the library, my hoodie was soaked through. The old woman at the front desk gave me a disapproving glance. "You're drenched, dear." "Yeah, perfect weather for reading, right?" She smiled faintly. "History section's in the back." I wandered through the aisles, the familiar scent of ink and parchment calming my nerves. But the deeper into the stacks I went, the darker it seemed. The overhead lights flickered. I found myself in a narrow corner I'd never noticed before. It was quiet, too quiet. As I reached for an encyclopedia, another book, larger and heavier, slid from the top shelf and slammed onto my foot. "Ow! What the—" I bent down and picked it up. It was a thick brown volume with no title on the spine, no library barcode, no signs of cataloguing. The cover was cracked and aged like brittle leather. Then I saw it, engraved faintly across the front. Prophetic pages. A chill prickled my skin. Curiosity got the better of me. I flipped it open and immediately noticed the pages were filled with handwritten notes. Each page contained a name, a birth date, and a death date. One page caught my eye. Timothy Green, aged 23, dies in a car accident on April 15th. My heart dropped. That was my best friend's name, his birthday, his age. April 15th was tomorrow. I slammed the book shut, heart thudding. Was this some kind of sick joke? I glanced around. No one was there. Just the hum of the library's ancient lights and the rain tapping against the windows. Grabbing the book, I rushed back to the front desk, shoved it into my bag, mumbled a thank you, and hurried into the storm. I burst into the house, ignoring Mom's protests. Upstairs in my room, I tossed the book onto my desk and grabbed my phone. My fingers trembled as I dialed Tim's number. "Yo, what's up?" Tim answered casually. "Dude, listen. Please. Whatever you do, don't go out tomorrow. I know this sounds nuts, but you could be in danger." He laughed. "You been watching horror movies again?" "Just promise me," I pleaded. All right, I promise." He didn't mean it. I could tell. That night, sleep eluded me. I stared at the ceiling, thoughts racing. What if the book was real? What if I could stop what it predicted? The next morning, I texted and called Tim repeatedly. No response. Around noon, I got the call. Timothy had died in a car crash just outside town. I didn't cry. Not at first. I sat there, phone in hand, staring at the wall. The weight of the book on my desk was unbearable. I picked it up again and flipped the pages. My hands trembled. Jessica Carter, age 25, from an aneurysm on April 16th. Jessica, my girlfriend. This wasn't a coincidence. I had one day. The morning after Tim's death didn't feel real. The birds chirped like any other day. The sun rose on time. But I was a wreck. I sat at my desk, staring at the book, that book, as if it were a bomb waiting to explode. My eyes burned from lack of sleep, but I couldn't stop reading it. Page after page, name after name, all of them eerily familiar. Aunts, uncles, classmates. And then I saw it. Jessica Carter, age 25, dies from an aneurysm on April 16th, 2003. Jessica, my girlfriend. Today was April 16th. I slammed the book shut like that would erase what I'd just seen. My heart pounded so hard it hurt. I grabbed my phone and dialed her number, fingers trembling. She answered with her usual cheerful tone. "Hey babe, what's up?" I couldn't bring myself to say it straight out. What was I supposed to say? "Hey, a cursed book says you'll die today, so cancel all your plans." So I lied. "Listen, I know it sounds weird, but can you please take the day off? Just stay home. Don't go anywhere. Don't even leave your apartment." She laughed. "Okay, Daniel, are you having another one of your anxiety spells?" "Jess, I'm serious." There was a pause. All right. If it means that much to you, I'll call in sick." That gave me a sliver of relief, but it didn't last long. I left my house later that afternoon and went straight to her place with the book in hand. I needed her to see it. I needed someone else to believe what I was dealing with. But when I got to her apartment complex, her car wasn't in its spot. I buzzed her. No answer. I called. Straight to voicemail. My stomach twisted. I asked the doorman if he'd seen her leave. He nodded and said she left about 20 minutes ago. Said she was headed to the diner she worked at. She told him she was feeling fine and just needed to get out of the apartment for a bit. I ran the 10 blocks to the diner, sprinting so fast my lungs felt like they were on fire. When I got there, it was chaos. Paramedics had swarmed the front door. Bystanders stood around whispering, holding their phones up. I shoved my way through the crowd, ignoring angry protests. And there she was, Jessica, on the floor, unmoving. One of the EMTs saw me and pulled me back. "Sir, you can't be here." "That's my girlfriend, let me through." His expression softened slightly. "I'm sorry, she had a brain aneurysm. It was instant. There was nothing we could do." I don't remember much after that, just sinking to the floor, the book falling out of my bag, my hands shaking. It had happened again. Another page, another death, and I couldn't stop it. Back home, I sat in silence. Mom asked what was wrong, but I just mumbled something about school. Mark was too busy on his phone to notice the ghost I was becoming. I locked myself in my room and stared at the book. What was it? Why did it exist? How could a book know so much? I flipped to the next entry and felt my blood go cold. Marcus Roberts, age 27, dies of a heart attack on April 30th, 2003. Mark, my older brother. And April 30th was just 2 weeks away. I didn't waste a second. I barged into his room where he was playing some dumb video game and yanked the controller out of his hand. "What the hell, dude? You can't leave the house on the 30th. Promise me. Just stay home." He stared at me like I was losing it. "Did you hit your head or something?" I didn't explain. I just shoved the book into his hands. Read it. He skimmed a few pages and tossed it aside. "This looks like someone's bad fan fiction. You seriously believe this crap?" I clenched my jaw. "Tim and Jessica are dead, Mark. Dead. The book predicted it. Exactly how and when." Mark rolled his eyes. "Coincidence. Seriously, bro, you need therapy." That night I couldn't sleep, and 2 days later Mark stopped speaking to me entirely, thought I was trying to scare him for attention. April 30th came. Mark announced he was going for a night jog. It was something he always did to clear his head. I begged him not to go. "I'm not going to have a heart attack on a 5-mile jog. Chill." He left anyway. I stood frozen at the window, watching him disappear into the night. 20 minutes later, the phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize. A woman's voice came through, trembling. "Is this Daniel Roberts?" "Yes, who's this?" "This is Officer Simmons with the Mill Creek PD. Your brother collapsed during his run. We tried CPR, but I didn't hear the rest. I collapsed right there on the kitchen floor." The funeral was a blur. Mom was a shell of herself. I barely left my room. The book sat on my nightstand, taunting me. I flipped through more pages, more names, more people I loved. Was I cursed? Or was this thing just a mirror, showing me what I couldn't accept? I had to know more. I went back to the library, gripping the book so tightly my knuckles turned white. The old librarian glanced up at me with her calm, unreadable expression. "Back again, Mr. Roberts? You know what this is, don't you?" She said nothing at first. Then, finally, yes. "So what is it? Why is it predicting deaths? Why is it targeting the people I love?" Her expression didn't change. The prophetic pages shows what is destined. It doesn't cause it. It reveals it. I slammed the book down. "Then how do I stop it? How do I save them?" She paused. "You cut the threads." "What does that mean?" "Sever the connections. Walk away from those you love. You're telling me I have to be alone to protect them?" She looked at me gently. "That is one path, but it is not without consequence." I left the library with the heaviest weight I'd ever carried, cutting ties with the people I cared about. That went against everything I believed. But what other choice did I have? That night I erased every contact in my phone. I blocked calls, ignored texts, I vanished from social media. I became a ghost. And for a while it worked. No more deaths, no more pages turning. But then one evening I walked into my room and found the prophetic pages sitting neatly on my bed. My heart skipped a beat. I picked it up and flipped to the final page. And there it was. Daniel Roberts, age 25, dies from isolation on May 15th, 2000, tomorrow. I dropped the book like it was on fire. I sat down slowly, the truth hitting me all at once. I had saved them, but I had doomed myself. The book never wanted me to save anyone else. It was warning me all along. The cost of caring was death, and the cost of abandoning them was the same. To be continued in part 3. The book was still there, lying on the bed like it belonged, like it had always been part of my story. Daniel Roberts, age 25, dies from isolation on May 15th, 2003. Tomorrow, I sat in the silence of my room, unable to move. The walls seemed to close in around me, the air getting heavier with every breath I took. This cursed book, this prophetic nightmare, it didn't just tell me what was coming, it decided what was coming. I tried to reason with myself. Maybe I can leave, run, burn the book, destroy it. But deep down, I already knew. You can't destroy what isn't truly alive. That night, I barely slept. I sat at my desk staring at my phone, hovering over Mom's number. I hadn't spoken to her since Mark's death. I hadn't spoken to anyone, because I thought that if I loved them, I'd get them killed. But now the book had taken aim at me. I pulled the book into my lap and stared at the blank pages before the last one. For the first time, I wondered something I hadn't dared before. What if I wrote in it? I picked up a pen. My hand trembled as I brought it toward the paper, but no matter how hard I pressed, the ink wouldn't stick. The pages rejected it, as if only it could choose what was written. I dropped the pen and let my head fall onto the desk. Maybe this was it. Maybe I really would die tomorrow. The morning of May 15th came like any other, except I didn't feel like me. I felt like a ghost, like someone watching their own story wrap up with no way to change the ending. I didn't eat breakfast. I didn't check my phone. I didn't open the windows. I just sat there, waiting for something, anything. Suddenly there was a knock at the front door. I froze. Another knock, louder this time. I opened the door cautiously, and there she was. Jessica's mom. Her eyes were red and swollen, but when she saw me, she forced a smile. "Daniel, I just wanted to say thank you," I blinked. "For what?" "For trying. Jessica told me everything, the call, your warnings, even about that book. She thought you were losing it, but you were just scared for her." I swallowed hard, my voice barely a whisper. "It didn't work. I couldn't stop it." She nodded. "Sometimes just trying is enough." She handed me a small envelope and turned to leave. I closed the door and opened it. Inside was a photograph of me, Jessica, and Tim from a summer years ago. We were laughing, eyes full of life. On the back, in Jessica's handwriting, "You were always trying to save people. Maybe it's time someone saved you." I stared at the prophetic pages again. Its cover now looked darker, like the ink had bled through the leather, and then something new happened. The page with my death began to change, right before my eyes. The ink faded, blurred, then reformed into something new. Daniel Roberts, age 25, missing. I dropped the book like it had burned me. Missing? How? Why? For the next few hours, I paced the house like a prisoner. I checked the mirrors, still me. Checked the doors, still locked. Then the power flickered. The lights went out. Silence. I grabbed a flashlight and made my way to the living room. That's when I saw it. The front door was wide open, but I hadn't heard a sound. I stepped toward it, heart hammering in my chest. The outside world looked different, dim, unnatural, like time itself had stopped. I stepped outside, and the moment I did, everything shifted. The street was the same, but empty, frozen. No cars, no people, no sound, just stillness. I turned back to go inside, but the door was gone. My house was gone. In its place was a tall, black iron gate. Beyond it, a massive structure rose into the sky like a dark cathedral made of books and shadow. And at the center was a library, but not like any library I'd ever seen. I stepped through the gate. As I approached the entrance, it creaked open without a sound. Inside, towering bookshelves lined endless hallways. The walls whispered, literally, voices murmuring names, dates, fates. My fate. I wandered deeper and deeper until I came to a grand room at the center. There it sat. The original prophetic pages, larger than life, resting on a marble pedestal, the pages glowing faintly. A hooded figure stood beside it. I asked the only question that mattered. Why me? The figure spoke, voice like rustling paper. Because you saw it, because you understood, and because you cared. So I'm being punished for caring? No, you're being offered a choice. A choice? The figure gestured to the book. Its pages flipped until it stopped on my name. Beneath it, 2 lines appeared. 1, Daniel Roberts, sacrifice himself, end the curse. 2, Daniel Roberts, keep the book, continue the cycle. My chest tightened. If I sacrifice myself, does it stop? For others, yes. And if I keep the book, you become its keeper. I looked down. A 3rd line began forming. A question. Who do you choose to be, Daniel? I don't remember deciding. Only the pain. Only the fire. The light. And then nothing. 1 year later. In a small public library on the outskirts of Mill Creek, a young woman browses the history section. She's new in town, just trying to get a paper done before finals. She bumps into a shelf and a heavy book topples to the floor. She picks it up. It has no barcode, no author, just a title, The Prophetic Pages. She opens it. The first name reads, Daniel Roberts, 25, died to save the world from the pages. But the second name is hers, and the pages begin to turn. 1 year had passed since the day I made my choice. I was supposed to be dead. At least, that's what the book said. But somehow I was still here. Except I wasn't Daniel anymore. Not really. I had become something else. Something between. I wandered through the world like a ghost. People passed by me, but no one noticed me. I tried to speak, but my voice never reached their ears. I tried to scream, but the sound was swallowed by silence. The prophetic pages had kept me alive, but only to replace the last keeper. Now I was the guardian of the cursed book, and I finally understood what that meant. The library I now existed in was not of this world. It sat between time and memory, hidden in plain sight, yet unreachable. The moment a name was written, I felt it. I didn't write the names, I only watched. And worse, I remembered them all, every life, every death, some peaceful, some unbearable. One day, I sensed a disturbance in the library, the kind that made the shelves shudder and the ink on the pages drip. Someone had entered the in-between, someone who wasn't supposed to be here. I rushed through the halls of endless pages. Candles lit themselves as I passed, flickering shadows stretching across ancient oak floors. When I reached the atrium, the beating heart of the library, I saw her. A girl. Maybe 17, maybe 18. She stood in front of the pedestal where the prophetic pages sat, her fingers trembling over its leather cover. She shouldn't have been able to touch it. No one but the keeper could. Unless... How did you get here? I asked. She turned to me, startled. Her eyes widened. Who are you? The librarian. The last one. She stepped back. Are you a ghost? Something like that. She held up a piece of paper, a torn page. On it was written, 17 vanishes without a trace, May 15th, 2004. My heart dropped, the exact day, 1 year after mine. Emily told me she found the page inside her locker at school, folded neatly like a note passed between friends. No book, just the page. But that was impossible. The book had never done that before. That meant the curse was changing, becoming stronger. I don't want to vanish, she said, her voice shaking. Please, help me. I hesitated. Helping her meant changing fate, and changing fate always came with consequences. But I had made that choice once before, and failed. There may be a way, I said, but you won't like it. We returned to the Hall of Mirrors. This room revealed not reflections, but futures. Emily stepped in front of one. The mirror showed her bedroom, empty, her mother crying into a pillow. The caption below read, "Disappeared on the way home from school. Case never solved." She turned to me, tears in her eyes. I don't want this to be my story. I nodded. Then I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out the key. The keeper's key. There's one way to rewrite fate. How? You must take the book from me. I explained what that meant. If Emily accepted the keeper's role, she would survive. But she would become like me, trapped in the library, forgotten, alone. But you'll live, I whispered. At what cost? She asked. She paused for what felt like an eternity. Then Emily stepped forward, placed her hands on the prophetic pages and whispered, I accept. Instantly the library changed. The walls shook, the ink screamed. The ceiling cracked open to reveal a swirling void of memories and shadows. The prophetic pages glowed white-hot and then slammed shut with a boom that shook the shelves for miles. I stepped back. The title on the cover faded from prophetic pages to volume set in Keeper Emily Grace. She gasped. The room went silent, and I felt myself beginning to fade. Wait, she cried. What happens to you now? I don't know, I said with a weak smile. Maybe I finally get to rest. My body began to dissolve into light, the chains of memory breaking one by one. Tell them it wasn't for nothing, I whispered. Then I was gone. But the story wasn't over. Somewhere in the real world, a student opened her locker and found nothing inside. No note, no torn page, just a quiet sigh from the wind. Emily was safe. For now. Deep inside the library of lost souls, a new keeper sat alone beneath flickering candlelight. Emily Grace, the girl who changed her fate, and unknowingly inherited a curse older than memory. She opened the book. The first name had already appeared. Kevin Torres, age 19, will drown in his dreams, June 2nd, 2004. She closed the book and whispered, Not if I can help it. And thus, volume 27 began. To be continued. June 1st, 2004. Emily stared at the first name written in her volume of the prophetic pages. Kevin Torres, age 19, will drown in his dreams. June 2nd, 2004. She traced the inked letters with her finger, heart pounding. She didn't know who Kevin was. Not yet. But she would, because that was her job now, the keeper. Her duty wasn't just to watch fates unfold, it was to intervene. If she dared. That night, Emily wandered the vast halls of the in-between library. Each corridor housed timelines, every shelf humming with trapped whispers from pages long faded. She approached a mirror labeled Kevin Torres. It activated as she stepped forward. A vision emerged. A boy with shaggy black hair lying in bed, headphones on, drifting off as music played in his ears. On his nightstand, a sleep journal. He was a lucid dreamer, and that was the problem. In the vision, Kevin's dream began. He stood waist-deep in a fog-covered lake, stars glimmering above. The water shimmered like silver, but behind him, something moved. A ripple. Then a voice. Time to sink, Kevin. A pair of pale hands broke the surface, grabbing his ankles. He screamed, struggled. The water pulled him down. The last thing visible before he vanished beneath the surface, a blank journal page. Emily gasped and turned away from the mirror. He's not just dying in his sleep. He's being hunted there. She needed help. She couldn't do this alone. She raced back to the librarian's chamber, where the rules of the book were recorded. There she found what she feared, a page labelled The Dreambound Rule. Should the book name a dreamwalker, the death will occur within a vision unless the keeper descends into their dream. Her heart dropped. She had to enter Kevin's dream and fight whatever hunted him. Deep inside the dream vault, a hidden section of the library, Emily retrieved the lucid key, forged from ink and shadow. Only a keeper could use it. She placed it to her temple, closed her eyes and whispered Kevin's full name, Kevin Elias Torres. In a blink, the shelves melted away. The stars above returned. The silver lake rippled, and Emily was inside Kevin's dream. She stood barefoot on the lake's edge, mist swirling around her ankles. Kevin appeared across the water, dazed, looking around. "Emily," he asked, voice echoing strangely. "Who? What is this?" "I don't have time to explain. You're in danger. Something's coming for you." Just then, the lake bubbled. Something massive stirred beneath. Kevin backed away, panicking. "I've dreamed this before," he whispered, "but I never drowned, until now." The water burst upward. A figure rose, a drowned, decaying version of Kevin himself, eyes hollow, mouth grinning. The dream drowner, it hissed. "You never wake up." Emily grabbed Kevin's wrist. "We run." They fled across the foggy lake surface as if it were solid, the dream drowner slithering behind them, water exploding with each movement. They reached a wooden dock that hadn't been there before. Emily yanked a chain hanging from the sky. A door appeared overhead. A voice echoed in the sky. "One may leave, one must stay." She stared at Kevin. "You have to go. You don't belong here." Kevin shook his head. "I'm not leaving you behind. This isn't real. I'll wake up here. You won't. Go." She shoved him toward the door. Just as the dream drowner leapt, Kevin disappeared into the light. The drowner collided with Emily, dragging her into the depths. She held her breath as long as she could. Then everything went dark. When she opened her eyes again, she was back in the library, soaked, shaking, alive. A bell rang behind her. A new page had written itself in the prophetic pages. She turned it. Kevin Torres survived. Dream altered. Timeline repaired. She smiled weakly. Her first life saved. That night, Kevin woke up in his bed, gasping. His journal was open to a blank page. Written in strange ink was, "Thank you for believing me." Back in the in-between library, Emily closed the book. More names had begun to appear, more futures waiting to be changed, more nightmares waiting to be entered. The work of the keeper had only begun. June 9th, 2004. It was supposed to be a simple birthday party. A cake, a few candles, a wish. But for Lucy Daniels, her 10th birthday came with a prophecy and a flame that would never die. Emily opened her journal in the between library. The newest page inked itself as she sat in silence. Lucy Daniels, aged 10, burned in an unexplained house fire, June 10th, 2004. The words weren't just written, they were branded into the page. The edges of the paper were warm to the touch. She gasped and backed away. Fire? It was the first child the book had shown her. Determined to intervene, Emily closed the book and whispered, "Lucy Daniels, show me her world." The mirrors around her lit up. One began to glow red. She stepped toward it and saw Lucy, excited, laughing, standing in a decorated kitchen, her family singing "Happy Birthday." 10 candles glowed atop a white frosted cake, but one candle, right in the center, was different. It flickered blue, and it wouldn't go out, no matter how hard Lucy blew. Emily leaned in. "That candle, it's not wax, it's something else." The scene blurred as the image zoomed in on the candle's flame. It shimmered unnaturally, almost alive, and in the flame a face appeared. It grinned. Emily rushed to the rules section of the library. She flipped frantically through the flame-bound passages, ink flying off pages as she read. The Ember Entity. In rare cases, a cursed flame may anchor itself to a soul at a moment of joy. If left unchecked, the flame will consume both the anchor and their home. Emily's hands trembled. This birthday candle is a curse, and Lucy, she's the matchstick. That night, Emily entered Lucy's dream through the candlelight portal. Inside, she stood in the same kitchen, only now it was deserted and quiet. The balloons were deflated, the walls were scorched, and Lucy stood in the corner, whispering to someone. I said I wouldn't tell, I promised, so why are you still here? Emily moved closer. There, on the table, sat the cursed candle, still lit. Its flame whispered, Light the cake again, Lucy, just once more. Emily stepped between Lucy and the flame. Don't listen to it, Lucy. You're dreaming. I'm here to help you. Lucy blinked. Are you the lady from my nightlight? Emily smiled softly. No, but I'm your friend, and that flame, that's not a friend, it's a trickster. Just then, the room shifted. The walls caught fire. Smoke filled the air. The flame grew into a fiery creature with glowing eyes and burning teeth. It howled, You will not steal my spark. The ember entity lunged. Emily shielded Lucy behind her. From her pocket she pulled out a shard of twilight glass, gifted to her by the Between Library. She held it high. The flame recoiled, screaming. Truth burns brighter than fire, Emily shouted. She stabbed the twilight glass into the candle base. It hissed, sizzled, and extinguished. Instantly, the kitchen dream collapsed. Emily woke up on the library floor, breathing hard. She ran to the book. The page updated. Lucy Daniels survived. Curse extinguished. Birthday restored. She smiled, another child saved. But the ink didn't stop. It kept writing. Benjamin Avery, age 45, suffocates beneath his childhood bed, June 11th, 2004. Emily's face turned pale. The book is accelerating, no rest. Meanwhile, the next morning in Lucy's world, she awoke in her real bed, yawning. Her cake had one candle missing. She blinked. Her mom entered. Strangest thing, honey. One of the candles burned itself out overnight. Lucy just smiled. She didn't tell anyone about the dream, but later, as she looked into the mirror in her room, she whispered, Thank you, Dream Lady. June 11th, Benjamin Avery, age 45, suffocates beneath his childhood bed. That was the prophecy written in the cursed journal. But what terrified Emily the most wasn't the how of his death, it was the where, under the bed. A man in his mid-40s, suffocating like a child trapped in a nightmare. Emily stood alone in the Between Library, reading Benjamin Avery's entry again. Underneath his childhood bed, she raised an eyebrow. What kind of grown man dies under the same bed he had as a child? The book gave no reply. Only the next mirror on the wall began to glow. This time, a deep brown hue pulsed from it, like old wood, rotting. She stepped through it. Benjamin Avery lived alone in a creaky farmhouse on the outskirts of Ohio. Once a schoolteacher, now retired due to nervous spells, he rarely left his home. He hadn't updated the furniture in years, and yes, he still slept on the same wooden bed he'd used since childhood. Same frame, same headboard, same dust beneath it. The only difference? Now, the bed breathed. That night, as Benjamin read a newspaper in bed, he felt a gentle shift beneath him, almost like the bed exhaled. He blinked and looked down. Nothing. Maybe just the old frame creaking. But when he got up to adjust the fan, he noticed something else. The floorboards didn't creak when he stepped off the bed. But when he stepped back on, a long, drawn-in breath, like something under the bed, inhaled. Benjamin didn't sleep that night. He sat upright, the covers clutched to his chest, eyes wide open. Every now and then the bed would shift beneath him. Not the mattress, not the springs, but from under the floor. He thought about calling someone, a neighbor, the police, a plumber? Who do you call when your bed is alive? Back in the Between Library, Emily watched it unfold from the mirror. Whatever's under that bed, it's waiting. She flipped through the cursed journal's rule index until she found it. Page 77, Sleep-bound entities. There exists a class of cursed objects bound to childhood fears. These artifacts anchor trauma to furniture, especially beds, and feed on isolation, guilt, and memory. The older the fear, the deeper it digs. Emily traced her finger across the page and whispered, He never left that bed because he never grew up. The next night, Benjamin decided to prove to himself that there was nothing under the bed. Armed with a flashlight and a baseball bat, he got down on the floor and slowly peeked underneath. Dust, a few toys, a pair of old socks, and then something blinked. 2 eyes, too far back, too large. He dropped the flashlight. Something scurried backward into the shadows. Benjamin screamed and fell back, knocking over his nightstand. Emily had seen enough. She summoned the glass compass from the library's artifact shelf. Its arrow spun wildly, then pointed downward, into the memory layer of Benjamin's dream world. She whispered, "Take me to his fear," and the compass glowed. She found herself in a younger Benjamin's bedroom. Posters of dinosaurs on the wall, a nightlight in the corner, and the bed, smaller, but just as ominous. Emily knelt by the child's bed. She whispered into the dream, "You don't have to be afraid of the dark anymore." The room shook. From under the bed, something growled. Emily crawled under. At first, she found dust and silence. Then, dozens of tiny pale hands reaching toward her. They belonged to shadows, children swallowed by their own beds in other stories. Their whispers echoed, "He brought us here. He's next." Suddenly she saw it. The memory beast. A spider-like shadow with a mouth stitched shut, hiding deep in Benjamin's subconscious. She took out the waking bell, an enchanted artifact. She rang it once. The sound pierced the shadows like light. The stitched mouth screamed open. The shadows screamed. The beast recoiled. Emily shouted, "You are not his memory. You're his fear, and you don't belong here anymore." The dream burst into shards. Emily awoke, gasping in the between library. The journal flipped to Benjamin's page. The ink rewrote itself. Benjamin Avery survived, bed exorcised, curse broken. She smiled, but something tugged at her sleeve, a voice, small, echoing from a new page. "Emily, it's me." She turned the page. A new name had appeared. Caroline Roberts, age 61, disappears into mirror, June 12, 2004. She froze. That was her mother's name. Her real-world mother. Emily's heart dropped. No, not her, not yet. June 12, 2004. Caroline Roberts, age 61, disappears into mirror. Emily stood frozen in the between library, staring at the cursed journal. Her mother's name, written in crimson ink that hadn't been there seconds ago. No, this isn't right. She grabbed the journal and flipped through the pages again. Maybe it was a mistake, but there it was. Caroline Roberts, age 61, disappears into mirror, June 12, 2004. Emily's hands trembled. That was today's date. Caroline Roberts lived alone in a colonial-style house in Portland, Maine. She was a retired nurse, a lover of tea, gardening, and old jazz records, and mirrors. Her house was filled with them, antique standing mirrors, hand mirrors, decorative frames. Some she'd inherited, others she found at estate sales. But there was one mirror she never bought. It simply appeared, in the attic. One morning it was just there, frameless, tall, its surface dark and foggy like breathing glass. Emily wasted no time. She summoned the thread compass, a device in the between library that tracks soul connections. She placed her hand on it, whispered "Mom," and waited. The needle spun, then pointed upward. The mirror on the north wall of the library shimmered. The glass reflected not Emily's face, but her mother's attic. The cursed mirror was already calling. Emily stepped through. Back in Portland, Caroline stood in the attic, staring into the strange glass. Something felt off. Her reflection didn't move when she did. Her hand waved. The reflection just stared, expressionless. Still. "That's not me." Suddenly, the glass surface began to ripple like disturbed water. Caroline stumbled back. The attic light flickered, and then a hand reached out. Not hers, pale, wrinkled, but wrong. Caroline screamed and turned to run, but she was gone. The mirror swallowed her whole. Emily emerged just a minute too late. The attic was empty. Only the mirror remained, foggy, pulsing. She approached it cautiously, holding up her palm. The glass was ice cold. A whisper echoed from within. "Emily!" Her mother's voice. Without hesitation, Emily pressed both palms to the glass. The mirror pulled her in. Inside was not reflection, but inversion. A shadow world made entirely of mirrors, walls, sky, floor, all reflections. The mirror realm. Emily looked down. She didn't have a reflection anymore. Her body was present, but incomplete, almost transparent. The longer I stay, the more I fade. She had to move quickly. She summoned the Echo Shard, an artifact used to trace sound memory, find her voice, follow her fear. The shard glowed and pointed deeper into the mirror maze. Every step was disorienting. Her reflection would appear, then at times she saw her child self staring back. At others, it was her mother, younger, crying. "Emily, I don't know where I am. I'm coming, Mom," she shouted. Her voice bounced infinitely in the glass maze. Suddenly, footsteps, not hers. Something was running. Emily turned sharply. A figure sprinted past the mirrored hallway. It looked like her, but with no eyes, just mirrored sockets. The figure laughed like broken glass shattering. Emily ran. Mirrored doors slammed shut around her. Her breathing echoed in slow motion. Her footsteps delayed by seconds. This place is breaking reality. She paused to catch her breath and noticed an ornate mirror hanging crooked on a mirrored wall. Inside it, her mother, trapped, pounding against the glass. "Emily, I'm here!" Emily rushed toward it, but the glass began cracking from the inside. Caroline's mouth opened in a scream. Suddenly, shatter! The mirror exploded into dust, but the dust hovered mid-air, frozen. Emily whispered, "I'm not too late." She reached out. The dust spun into a clock. 12:06 a.m., time of disappearance. She could reverse it. Emily pulled out the rewind locket, an artifact from the library vault. It had one use, to rewind 60 seconds of memory in another's timeline. She whispered, "Caroline Roberts, 12:05 a.m." The locket glowed and disintegrated in her hand. A gust of wind pushed her backward and the mirror reformed. Inside, her mother, breathing, still whole. "Emily, I'm here, Mom. I'm going to get you out." She looked into the mirror and spoke the incantation from the journal. "Glass reflects the truth you hide. Let the heart and soul collide. Shatter lies and break the chain. Bring her home. Release her pain." The mirror screamed. It pulsed red. A beam of light hit Caroline and yanked her from the mirror. They both collapsed on the attic floor, panting, crying, alive. Back in the between library, the cursed journal flipped itself open. The page updated. Caroline Roberts survived, soul retrieved, curse delayed. Emily wiped her tears, but then the journal flipped again, a new page, a name she barely remembered. David Tran, age 38, dissolves into rain, June 13th, voice cracked. David? The school librarian? She remembered him from high school, quiet, gentle, always had a peppermint in his pocket. Why is he next? She glanced at her mother. Safe, for now. Then she faced the next mirror. Raindrops were already forming on its surface. June 13th, 2004. David Tran, age 38, dissolves into rain. Emily stood frozen in front of the new journal entry. She hadn't seen David Tran since high school. A kind man. Always calm. Always kind. The cursed journal's crimson ink glowed faintly as rain started tapping against the library's high windows. He's next. She whispered the name again, and the mirror before her shimmered to life, this time showing a quiet street in Seattle, Washington. A man in a navy coat stepped outside of a small brick townhouse. It was David. And the rain wasn't normal. David had been waking to the sound of rain nearly every day that month. He didn't mind. Seattle had always been rainy, but this morning felt different. The sky was clouded over, but there was no wind, no birdsong. The air was heavy. David walked down his front steps, umbrella in hand. As he stepped onto the sidewalk, a single raindrop hit his hand and burned. He hissed and looked up. The rain wasn't water. It was thick, almost like oil, greyish, warm. He wiped it off, but where it had touched, his skin was tingling and then fading. Meanwhile, Emily summoned the weather needle from the between library, an artifact that tracks unnatural weather occurrences linked to fate. It spun erratically, glowing red. The rain itself is cursed. She had to reach him fast. She stepped through the Seattle mirror. As soon as she arrived, her boots splashed in the oily puddles that steamed against the pavement. People around her walked normally. They didn't feel it. Only David was vulnerable. It's targeting those marked in the journal. She spotted him halfway down the block, staring at his arm. His sleeve was rolled up, and his skin underneath was disappearing like mist. "David," she called out. He turned, a faint recognition in his eyes. "Emily?" "Yes." "You have to get out of the rain, now." He frowned. "What are you talking ab—" Suddenly a raindrop landed on his cheek. A hole opened instantly, revealing transparent tissue, evaporating like breath on a mirror. He cried out and stumbled backward, clutching his face. Emily pulled him into a nearby bookstore. The clerk barely looked up as they burst in. Inside it was warm and dry. David collapsed onto a chair, shaking. "What's happening to me?" Emily pulled out the cursed journal and opened to his name. She showed it to him. "This journal predicts deaths. It says you dissolve into rain today." David blinked, disbelieving, but he didn't argue. "I knew something was wrong with this morning," he muttered. "Everything felt off. I thought I was just tired." Emily reached into her satchel and pulled out a glass rain catcher, an artifact that could trap cursed water. She ran outside, held it up and gathered the thick grey droplets until it glowed red. When she returned inside, the vial pulsed in her palm. "We can fight it." She opened the time ribbon, a silk strip that allowed for momentary replays of near-death moments. She wrapped it around David's wrist. His arm began to reform. He gasped in disbelief, but before they could breathe, thunder boomed, louder than natural. Outside, the rain was rising upward, defying gravity. Emily looked through the bookstore window. "It's trying to take you anyway." David stood, now steadier. "Then we don't let it." Together, they ran through the alleys to a nearby greenhouse, the only place Emily knew might work. In the center of the glass building was an ancient rain mirror, a relic she'd once read about in the Between Library archives. It captured storms and their curses. They reached it just as the floating rain formed a vortex above the greenhouse. "It's now or never." Emily opened the cursed journal and read aloud. "By rain reborn, by storm unmade. Take back the soul the storm betrayed. Mirror of sky, seal this fate. Let water fall, but not to take." The vortex screamed. The greenhouse shook. David stood in the center as the mirror's surface shimmered like a lake. The cursed rain flew toward the glass and vanished inside it. Silence. Then blue sky. David fell to his knees, breathing hard. The mirror turned dark again. He looked at his hands. Solid. Emily smiled through tears. "You're safe." David reached out and gently took her hand. "Thank you." Back in the Between Library, the cursed journal flipped again. David's name faded to grey. David Tran, survived, curse contained, mirror sealed. But the ink began to shift again. Emily leaned closer. Next entry, Margaret Dale, age 12, devoured by her own shadow, June 14th, 2004. She gasped, a child. No. The mirror to her right slowly darkened. Inside she saw a little girl's bedroom, a nightlight, a teddy bear, and on the floor a shadow that moved on its own. June 14th, 2004. Margaret Dale, age 12, devoured by her own shadow. Emily stood frozen in front of the mirror, staring into the bedroom of a child she didn't know. A tiny, lavender-painted room filled with dolls, storybooks, and soft-stuffed animals. In the middle sat a girl, Margaret. She was brushing her hair in the dim glow of a unicorn nightlight. The shadow behind her was moving. Not with her, not because of her. On its own. Emily stepped through the mirror and into the little girl's bedroom, gently landing behind a stack of picture books. She crouched, hiding herself in the shadows. Strange, she thought. The shadows here feel thick, like oil, the kind that slides across floors instead of simply resting. From behind the bed, she watched the shadow crawl along the floor, stretching toward the girl like fingers. Margaret stopped brushing her hair and frowned. "Mom?" she called. No answer. She turned around and looked down. "Why is my shadow moving weird?" Still no response. She got off her bed and stepped toward the hallway. Emily had no time left. She stepped out from hiding. "Margaret!" The little girl gasped, startled. Emily knelt to her level, holding up her hands gently. "My name is Emily. I'm not here to hurt you, but your shadow, something's wrong with it." Margaret looked confused, but curious. "Is it haunted?" Emily nodded. "Worse. It's cursed. The mirror in the corner of the room shimmered violently. Emily's cursed journal flew open on its own. The red ink glowed. Devoured by shadow at 12:03 a.m. Emily looked at the clock. 12:01 a.m. 2 minutes. She looked at Margaret, now standing near the mirror. Her shadow began to split. A second shadow peeled off from under her, slowly forming a new figure, a black silhouette with glowing red eyes. Margaret screamed. Emily stepped between them. The cursed shadow lunged. Emily reached into her satchel and pulled out a shadow tether, a silver cord enchanted to trap spectral entities. She threw it, catching the creature mid-air. It screeched like glass grinding on metal. "Margaret, run to the hallway. Close the door behind you," Margaret bolted. Emily focused on the creature, tightening the tether as it twisted and flailed in mid-air. But then, snap! The tether broke. The shadow dropped to the floor, oozing across the carpet like liquid smoke. It disappeared into the cracks beneath the door. In the hallway, Margaret was screaming for her mom. Emily burst out, grabbing the girl's hand. "Where's the basement? Shadows are weaker underground." Margaret pointed to a door at the end of the hall. Emily yanked it open, rushing down the stairs with the girl, flipping on the light at the bottom. Concrete walls, old paint cans, a dusty swing bike. Emily pulled Margaret behind her as she dug into her satchel. "There's only one chance." She found it, a candle of last light, a relic that can burn shadows permanently. The shadow creature crept down the steps. Not fast, but deliberate, as if it knew it couldn't be stopped. Emily lit the candle. The flame was white, cold. The shadow paused halfway down the steps. For the first time, it hesitated. Emily chanted an incantation from the cursed journal. Darkness undone, return to the deep, fade from the living, back to sleep. The flame shot upward like a torch. The shadow hissed, then screeched in agony as it began to peel away, piece by piece, until only smoke and dust remained. Margaret stared in awe, eyes wide and tear-filled. "Is it gone?" Emily smiled gently, exhausted. "Yes, for good." The clock ticked over to 12:04 a.m. Emily opened the journal one more time. Margaret's name slowly faded. Margaret Dale, survived. Curse neutralized. Shadow sealed. Emily knelt in front of her. "You're safe now, but this book, it doesn't stop." Margaret nodded. "I don't want anyone else to die because of a shadow." Emily smiled. "Neither do I." As Emily stepped back into the between library, she felt the toll of each rescue, each battle with fate. But she wasn't done. The journal flipped again. This time the ink didn't write a name. It drew a symbol, a house, a door, and beneath it scrawled in thick red ink, "The one who began it all returns." Emily's hands trembled. No, not him. She turned to the oldest mirror in the library. It reflected nothing, but a soft knock echoed from within it. Once, twice. Then the sound of a door creaking open.